Welcome, folks, to Dedham, Massachusetts. We're live down the street from the courthouse where Karen Read is on trial once again, murder charges. It doesn't get any more serious. And this hour, we're talking about a case, and the subject of our investigation tonight is the reaction to this case, which has been so much different than like any other case I've ever covered in more than 2 decades. Yes, I dye my hair silver now. For more than 2 decades at Court TV, because people are so passionate about their views of this case. And it's manifested itself in many different ways. It's manifested itself on social media to the extreme, but also here in Dedham outside the courthouse. Here's the story. The tragic death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe on a snowy January night in 2022 has spiraled into one of the most controversial criminal cases in recent Massachusetts history. Found unresponsive outside 34 Fairview Road in Canton, John's injuries led prosecutors to charge his girlfriend, Karen Read, with second-degree murder. But from the start, questions swirled. Evidence gaps, alleged conflicts of interest, and law enforcement connections to the home where O'Keefe was found sparked widespread doubt. In response, the Free Karen Read movement emerged, gaining traction both online and in person. Supporters believe she's being framed, claiming a cover-up by those meant to uphold the law. With passionate protests outside courtrooms and viral videos dissecting the case, the movement has turned into a national conversation about truth, justice, and trust in the system. As Karen Read's retrial continues, the spotlight on this deeply divided case only intensifies. Returning here to Dedham, Massachusetts has been interesting. I was here last year for the first trial of Karen Read and experienced something outside the courthouse I've never seen before in this type of case. So today, first day in Dedham, I decided to go back to the courthouse, take a look around to see what's milling, not inside the courtroom, but outside the courthouse. This year, this is where Karen Read and the defense team pull up every morning. They get out of the black SUV, and then they begin their way over here towards the courthouse. And they walk right down this sidewalk and go up those stairs. It's a quick little trip. Last year, though, a much different scene. Last year, she was pulling in across the street and would be greeted by dozens and dozens of supporters each and every morning. So now I am much closer to where everyone was last year. So you go from the courthouse, you cross the street, and this is the area where everyone was last year, because this was where the buffer zone sort of ended right here, and then this whole green patch and the sidewalk became the place where the Karen Read supporters would congregate early, they would stay late, and each morning they would greet Karen Read. It was very, very different being outside that courthouse. And that brings me to the first question in our investigation. And I think this is a pretty important one. Where are the Karen Read supporters? I know where they were last year, but where are they now? Joining me, Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson. Here he is to my, I look to my left, he's on my right. Also with us, longtime Massachusetts attorney Rick Grundy. Here he's next to me over here, prosecuted in that courthouse, and I covered that trial. We didn't have a lot of people outside, but there are a lot of people interested in the case. Yep. They just weren't carrying signs. Okay, also with us, Karen Read supporter Nick Rocco and Wayne Dennison. You know him from a big trial, the Johnny Depp trial. He was on the winning side of that one. Great to have you all here. All right, before we answer this question, and Nick, you know I'm going to you on this, take a look, because I did find some Karen Read supporters today. Now I'm standing on the other side of the courthouse, in the other part of the buffer zone, and what's interesting this year is that you have folks gathering on this side, which seems to be a little closer to the courthouse. If you look to my left, you'll see folks gathered. They're watching the trial live. They're wearing green to support Turtle Boy and a lot of pink to support Karen Reed.
All right. Nick, let me begin with you, because the supporters, do you feel that the same level of support is there this year locally? I'm not talking about online. I know what's happening online, but here locally.
Yeah, I would say if not more. I mean, the reason why you don't potentially see everybody out there, pretty much one reason, where everybody was hanging out and being a part of this was now moved to 300 feet. So you can't be as close as you were. You're basically on this small sidewalk with barriers between a fence and the street. So, and the reason why that was moved 300 feet was because Judge Beverly Cannoni had said that a previous juror had stated that they could hear some of the protesters inside the courthouse while they were deliberating. And we actually found out in a new motion filed in the First Circuit, a juror had filled out an affidavit for that was actually a lie. So that's something developing right now as well.
Unbelievable. Wayne, I want you to take a look at this, because right now, Cody Thomas is in town with me. You know him. And we're going to take a look at the Cody cam, because he took a walk today from the courthouse to the new area where some of the folks have been getting together in the morning. And I think this video really demonstrates just how far away it is. So as we watch this, Wayne, you were at the Johnny Depp trial. Johnny Depp, what were the rules there? Were there rules for the folks showing up?
Yeah, there were.
Because they were supporting Johnny Depp, I believe.
There were a number of people supporting Johnny Depp. There were rules, but you had to keep people away from the courthouse doors. But by and large, people could protest, and they could use their First Amendment rights and say what they wish. And there were hundreds of people out front, and you were there. There were hundreds of people at all times.
Hundreds and hundreds cheering on Johnny. Matt, it's so different this year, isn't it? It's like a different flavor for me outside.
Well, it's a different flavor inside, too. Very different trial, trial one, trial two. But what we're talking about right there outside the courthouse, you know, you see a lot of pictures of people standing on the steps, holding those signs and everything. That wasn't during the trial. What we are seeing is just the buffer zone pushed out. And I can tell you, I'm at the courthouse each and every day. I'm seeing the people being split, what you would normally see together. And also, Karen Reed doesn't spend her lunch break in the same spot. She doesn't walk through the gauntlet to the church in that area that you're looking at in video right here. So, I mean, yes, there's fewer people, but I'm seeing different faces every day, to be honest with you.
Rick, have you ever seen anything like this in Massachusetts, number one? And what's going on here?
No, I haven't. But first, let me say, Matt and I have been being confused all night. So you're not the first one there. So, and Matt's going to have something to say to you later, I think. So, no, I haven't seen anything exactly like this previously. But again, this was, you know, the real straw that stirred this was Turtle Boy. And this is a person behind a keyboard, answerable to nobody. So you don't have that filter of the media that is drawing their story from something other than their keyboard. And that's what really stirred the crowd there. And then having it right in front of the courthouse there, in front of the cameras, that's drawing the crowds in more. So, you know, there were people there that supported Karen Reed, and there were people there that got on the bandwagon because it was fun. They're getting out there, and they're getting part of a crowd, and they're on TV.
So you're not thinking all the supporters are supporting Karen Reed or in for a party, a ride here? Is that what you're saying, Rick?
To some degree. I think they genuinely become supporters of Karen Reed, yes. But if you ask them some of the particulars about the case, they're no Nick Rocco.
Well, I would have to strongly disagree with that. I talked to many people, and they know the facts of this case. And the reason why they're there is because they see the injustice of what's going on. And everybody has the same goal. They want Karen Reed to be free, and we do want justice for John O'Keefe. And I know it's a divided line, but both sides do want the same thing, justice for John O'Keefe. But ultimately, one side's majority of the people know and see what's going on, and very few want to believe that Karen Reed did this.
I don't think you're going to see the same buffer zone, though. The First Circuit has ruled. The First Circuit did not reverse, but they vacated the order that denied the preliminary injunction that limited the buffer zone and pushed it even further out. if you read the writing on the wall of the First Circuit decision, they're telling this judge that there is a way to make a buffer zone that is closer than the existing buffer zone. And I have every expectation that the federal judge will, in fact.
Well, here's one of the things. What impact does that? Why don't you take a listen to one of Karen Reed's supporters, Scott McGinnis, who I talked to, talking about the impact of this new buffer zone.
It's a lot more narrower down here. Some of the local residents aren't happy about us being down here.
Do you feel that it's deterred people from coming out?
In a little way, it does, because a lot of people were coming down in trial one, and we had all that space up there. We had all that room. So people that are coming now have to rough it a lot more. So it has brought down the numbers a little bit. But we had a good crowd here Thursday. We had a lot of rain last week. And obviously this is a beautiful day, but a lot of people can't be down here every day. So it's definitely a lot different atmosphere this time around because we don't have the space that we had previous.
And that's a big deal, Matt. I mean, it's a much different area where they are during the day now.
But also, Karen Reed's not walking through the group of people this time around. She is taking the side street that is currently within that buffer zone area. So her car, her exit is not in the middle of all of that. So I think that is your biggest change, actually.
Yeah, and have we had any reaction from the defense, like not having that every morning?
Well,
is
the
it,
defense
is it a plus
also,
or a minus?
The defense also has a gag order, right?
So they can't even tell you.
They can't even tell you, so it's only Karen Reed that's able to speak to the media. And towards the end, when we were in Verdict Watch, Vinny, you remember this, they stopped answering any questions, and they were having problems getting through the crowd at that point in time. Now Karen Reed stands at the steps at the courthouse each and every day and either answers one or two questions or says no comment, and then they move on. That's a big difference.
Yeah, huge difference this year. All right, the good news, everyone is staying for the hour. We've got a live studio audience with us. You'll hear from them a little bit later on in the program. We're live in Dedham. Coming up next, is the buffer zone too restrictive?
You had f***ing guys detain me last week. I asked you to leave.
Go. Are you leaving? Are you leaving? She's leaving.
Is Karen Reed a killer girlfriend?
She's guilty.
Or the scapegoat in an elaborate cover-up?
Karen Reed was framed!
We know who did it.
The Karen Reed Murder Retrial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
Just look at that touch from Trinity Rodman.
Saturday night.
When she is on the field, she changes the game. Saturday night.
Saturday night
Is our night.
The new Saturday Night Out is on ION all season long.
about the buffer zone.
That's the statement.
Yes, everybody in America should be concerned about that. I could protest closer to the Trump White House right now, legally, than I can get to the small town courthouse. How does she have that much power?
And the world we live in, we're supposed to be able to say and do as we want, and then you have us standing here. You can't wear this, you can't wear that. Like, I'm human.
She's in. All right, Cody Thomas with the Cody Cam. Speaking to the folks downtown Dedham, welcome back. So this buffer zone, there's an area where you can't wear Karen Reed stuff, you can't hold a sign, you can't wear a t-shirt, you can't scream out loud. And if you do, there's a lot of troopers that are right in front of the courthouse. So lo and behold, today, our cameraman, Peter Noel, was in front of the courthouse. Didn't have his camera loaded, but had his cell phone, and all of a sudden, this happened.
For the day.
Did we have an issue with this before? When you're walking through here with the sweatshirt?
I'm leaving.
I understand.
I'm not congregating. I'm not protesting. I'm leaving.
Right, but what's the rule?
There's no rules about this one. It doesn't say Karen Reed.
It has to do with the case, right?
No, it doesn't. It has to do with something else. A guy whose kid was just murdered. Okay. All right, you know what?
I know. All right. Go ahead. It's being documented.
Take me. Go ahead.
I'm not doing that.
Take me. Wait. You had guys detain me last week. I asked you to leave.
Go. Are you leaving? Are you leaving? She's leaving. Right. All right, good.
Okay. She was able to walk away. She did not get arrested. She was not happy, though. Not happy at all. And Whatever was on the back of that sweatshirt apparently was not about Karen Reed, but nonetheless, this is pretty clear about what's going on here in this buffer zone. And all of that brings us to the next question in our investigation. And the question is the buffer zone too restrictive? And another question, what just happened there? My goodness gracious. Rick Grundy, what is going on in Norfolk County?
Well, you know, you're still having the people show up, and you're still having a lot of intensity with respect to their feelings and whatnot. And I guess from what this woman had to say that, you know, it's a forum for something other than Karen Reed as well. So they're coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah, but if you have, do you think state troopers are going too far? Is this too restrictive? I mean, the First Amendment is first.
I think what happens in a situation like that is you take a legal ruling and somebody tried to boil it down to give to a bunch of troopers as to how they should enforce it, and they overstepped.
So, Vinny, in the first trial, I just want to make it clear, when you saw everybody lined up on that sidewalk as Karen Reed walked in, that was inside of the buffer zone. You were allowed to wear whatever you wanted. You couldn't hold a sign that said Karen's name, but you could wear pink and stand there, and they were allowing it. Now, this time around, we've already seen one person get arrested, thrown into the back of a paddy wagon, and the woman we see on TV right now, she actually received a summons to appear in court because she walked into a buffer zone on a public sidewalk with whatever she has on. It has nothing to do with the Karen Reed case. Now you're restricting everyone's First Amendment rights. I mean, there's no law that says you can't walk up and down, and who puts Judge Beverly Cannoni in charge to say you can't walk outside on the sidewalk?
It's too restrictive. The short answer is way too restrictive. They have First Amendment rights. They have the ability to voice their opinion. As long as they are not disrupting the trial and interfering with the jurors, they should be able to do what they need to do. And I think that that's what the First Circuit is signaling.
So I think what happened is it got way out of hand, trial number one.
Which part, though? Because it was very different during deliberations and towards the end than day-to-day during the 6 to 10 weeks.
I think the day-to-day, and you hit the nail on the head, it was their arrival, the walk down the red carpet that was in, you know, you got jurors showing up somewhere, you got witnesses showing up somewhere, and they're running this gauntlet. In an attempt to curb that, they went all the way in the other direction. They should have tried somewhere in the middle, and if that worked, great. If it didn't, now you have reason to go a little bit further.
Vinny, I will say, in short, that I do feel that there is more enforcement from the French and Electric, which is what they're called here, for the color of blue that they wear in Massachusetts. But I find them to be very courteous, but there is, you know, there's officers on bicycles. There is, you know, I did notice the van for detainment. There is additional precautions for the second trial.
And I'm wondering, you know, I'm looking at it, and I'm saying this is a government building, right? The whole purpose of the First Amendment, right, was to be able to speak out against the government, right? The judge works for the government. Prosecutors work for the government. It's a government building. Of all the places where you don't want to restrict speech, it's in front of a government building. Like, I don't understand this. This is Massachusetts, isn't it? This is like the people who helped found this nation, right? I just don't get it. And yes, I'm a journalist. I'm a lawyer. I believe in free speech, you know, as far as it can go without getting violent or threatening. But what really scares me about this is we're talking about protesting the government. And the government taking action to restrict people from protesting them. It's almost like the government has a conflict of interest in ruling on this. Like it should be ruled on, I don't know, by somebody else. Like, does anyone else have a problem with that?
Well, some of the protesters were literally protesting the judge. You're literally protesting the government, the person who is running this thing, and the judge is the person who then says, oh, you can't do that close to me.
Yeah, and we talk about the jury is the one, right? So they said and it seems it comes back to someone allegedly heard something. Yeah. Was the follow-up question, did that change your vote in the case, right? I went to the Harvey Weinstein trial in New York City. New York City, there's noise everywhere. But there were people like chanting outside the courthouse. They heard it in the courtroom. They did. They didn't do anything about it. They let the people protest whatever they were protesting outside of the government. But here it's different because they're actually protesting the government itself, not like, I'm going to say the name, I hate saying it, the Casey Anthony trial. There were dozens and dozens of people. They all hated that woman. She was the most hated woman in America. They were all against her. Everybody knew it. Did not impact that jury because it was not guilty at the end of the day. As shocked as I was, so why are we so sensitive in Massachusetts, of all places? I'll get off my soapbox.
I think part of it also has to do with the geographic area that you're dealing with. You don't have Fifth Avenue out in front of you to hold a bunch of people. Where are you going to put them? I agree that it went too far. I believe that action needed to be taken. But if you walk around there, where do you go? Where do you draw that line? Could have been less.
Well, just to say about the noise, and, I don't really want to, I don't have an opinion about it, as for what they're doing. I'm an observer, as we know. But for the noise, I will tell you, look at how many times they do have to stop testimony because it's apparently the busiest street in America with the most ambulances, right, like you do hear a lot in that courthouse that turns 200 years old on America's birthday this year.
Yeah, maybe the solution is not a buffer zone, but maybe some insulation.
Well, one of the things that they said in the federal appeal was that, let us closer, we'll make sure it's quiet.
And just tone it down. All right, everyone's staying. We are live in Dedham. Up next, what happens after a verdict in this case?
How would you feel if Karen Read was convicted?
Really sad. But, it's possible. Because a lot of people have a hard time believing the police can lie this much.
Welcome back to Vinnie Politan Investigates. We are live in downtown Dedham, just down the block where all this is happening, the retrial of the century. It's the Karen Read trial. This case, extremely polarizing, to say the least. For those of you not familiar with it, here's the story.
Karen Read's retrial for the 2022 death of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, has reignited intense public scrutiny and controversy. Prosecutors allege that Read, after a night of drinking, struck O'Keefe with her SUV and left him to die in the snow outside of a fellow officer's home. The defense contends that O'Keefe was killed inside the house and that Read is being framed as part of a cover-up involving law enforcement. The case has galvanized a fervent Free Karen Read movement, with supporters rallying outside the courthouse, donning pink attire and asserting her innocence. Their demonstrations have led to legal challenges over protest buffer zones, raising First Amendment concerns. Critics argue that the movement's aggressive tactics, including confrontations with witnesses and dissemination of theories, have escalated tensions and potentially influenced the judicial process. As the retrial unfolds, the intersection of legal proceedings and public activism continues to shape the narrative surrounding this complex and polarizing case.
So this is the retrial of Karen Read, right? We had one trial. That jury did not reach a unanimous verdict, or did they? Right? There was some controversy after the first non-verdict that perhaps the first jury was unanimous, not guilty on counts 1 and 3. But the bottom line is, officially on the record, it was a mistrial. So now we have the retrial. And this one could very well end with a verdict. So today, I was in the streets of Dedham with various members of the Free Karen Read movement who were voicing their opinions outside of the buffer zone. And I asked them about that, like, what happens if there's a verdict?
What would happen if she was found not guilty?
We'd have a huge ass party. There will be a big celebration for her with all of her supporters.
It's going to be interesting because we all believe that John O'Keefe was assaulted in Brian Albert's house. We believe that he was staged on the lawn. It's been a cover-up. But the sad part is, even though we all are here waiting for Karen Reed to be acquitted, how do we ever investigate, charge, and prosecute the real culprits? Because this was a cover-up from the get-go. So if the state can't convict Karen Reed of something here, everybody's going to be left wondering what really happened to John O'Keefe. That's the sad part, actually.
What would happen if Karen Reed was found guilty?
Then we would appeal and support her fully and make sure that she gets the right justice for John O'Keefe.
A lot of people are going to lose their minds because this is blatant corruption. This is blatant lies. She wouldn't have even been on trial if not for the false testimony to the grand jury. I killed him, I hit him. She wouldn't have even had a true indictment, and she wouldn't be on trial, and now it's proven falsified statements that they made to the grand jury, and people should be held accountable.
I don't think it would. I don't think it would go well. I think that there would possibly be I don't want to say riot. I think that's too strong of a word, but I don't think it would go well.
All right, and that brings us to the next question in our investigation tonight. Let's take a look at it. And it's pretty simple, but it's maybe not so simple. What happens after a verdict, if it happens in this retrial? What happens if a guilty? What happens if a not guilty? How does the Free Karen Reed movement react? How does the government react? How does our system of justice react? Joining me, Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson. Also with me, attorney Rick Grundy and Wayne Dennison and Nick Rocco. He is a Karen Reed supporter. Great to have you all here. Matt, what do you think that moment will be like?
Why did you have to come to me first?
Because you've been here day after day.
I saw it during the first trial, right? And I wonder how long the deliberations are going to go this time around. I wonder if we're going to have a jury that possibly understands how to fill out the form better.
That'd be nice.
Which is an argument that's been made by even guests on your show. But I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever have a collective mindset because this is such a polarizing case.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it changes anyone's mind. But Rick, what do you think here? Not guilty. If it's a not guilty, is there a message received by the district attorney's office? Does it have any impact on the way they take a look at other cases? Does it impact any of the people directly involved in the investigation of the case?
Yeah, I think absolutely it does. You know, there's something here that's something of a local aspect, but I am guessing that in other jurisdictions it's pretty much the same. If there is a suspicious or unattended death, the first thing that a local police department is supposed to do is to call the district attorney's office, who sends out the homicide prosecutors. Unfortunately, they weren't much better in this situation. But I know one side believes that there's corruption, but sometimes there's a thin line between corruption and incompetence. One or both were at foot here, and certainly a not guilty. Not necessarily didn't happen that way, but you didn't prove it because you did such a bad investigation. That's going to ring throughout the law enforcement. You know, if you were talking about the crowd, I think it's going to be equally loud no matter what it is, and I think the buffer zone is going to get broken regardless of what the verdict is.
Yeah, let's take a listen to some more of the folks that I spoke with. I want you to get a full flavor for what people are thinking.
What would happen if Karen Reed was found not guilty?
I think there would be a lot of celebration.
I hope they go after the people that are guilty.
Justice. That's justice. But it's not, don't end there. This is justice for John O'Keefe. They need to get the Higgins and get the state police and get... How does a tail light shatter like glass when it's plastic? I need to ask you that question. That's like the basic. How do they say those injuries from the arm are from getting hit by the tail light? I mean, you know the truth.
What happens if she's found guilty?
I don't even want to think about that. It's not going to happen. Hopefully it won't happen. This needs to be a mistrial or dismissed altogether. It never should have gone to court in the first place.
I'd be still supporting Karen. It would be a wrongful verdict. She's obviously didn't do this.
All right. Nick, what are your thoughts if that jury comes back? And let me tell you, again, I'll say her name.
Casey Anthony.
You never know what a jury's going to do. You don't know, regardless of what the evidence is, and sometimes regardless of public opinion. Now, in the Johnny Depp case, public opinion overwhelmingly in Johnny Depp's favor, right? And the jury watched the same trial as the public. That could be the case here. If it is, Karen Reed wins. I'm on social media. I know what's going on out there. But what if they come back guilty? What do you think happens? What happens to all the folks, all the supporters? What happens locally? What happens with her defense team?
Well, I mean, we all know her defense team absolutely has her back, so I think immediately there's going to be appeals in process just because of how the first trial and the second trial were conducted under Judge Beverly Cannoni, and just the incompetence, like Rick had said, of the Massachusetts State Police and the Canton Police Department, not writing reports, using leaf blowers. So the list goes on. I think the support is actually going to grow in that sense because now people are more upset that she got put away in jail for something that she did not do. So I don't see the support going away, but if it's a not guilty verdict, we do need to find justice for John O'Keefe because something happened to him.
Yeah, but what do you think the reaction will be of all the folks who are so passionately committed to this? Yourself included.
What, if there's a not guilty?
No, if there's a guilty.
I mean, again, I don't want to say people are gonna riot, but people are gonna be upset about this. And I would say all over the world. I mean, there are supporters in Australia, Ireland, the UK. People come here. I think just last week they were here from Georgia, and people from Ireland coming as well. You guys are here, but obviously covering the case. So people know about this, and they know what's happening, and they believe in Karen's innocence. So I can truly say that nobody is going to be happy if there's a guilty verdict, besides a select few people.
Let me ask you, Wayne, if the verdict goes contrary to, I would say, 75 to 80% of what the public is saying. Every time I've done a survey, those are the numbers that come up again and again and again. It's unscientific, but it's still, it's similar to Johnny Depp was even higher. What if it's guilty? Do people who've never paid attention to our system of justice lose faith in the system of justice?
Yeah, I think that there will be people who will lose faith in the notion that you can get a fair trial. And if it's guilty, I know that we're going to get an immediate appeal. This thing is going to continue to go down and keep going on, and that the supporters will continue to support Karen Reed. I think in all likelihood, nobody's changing their mind based on what the verdict is.
Yeah, I get the feeling, Matt, I don't know about you, but if it comes back guilty, I feel like the movement is re-energized to a certain extent. Like,
no matter which way it goes, it doesn't go away because she also has the civil suit that is pending and stalled right now until the outcome of the criminal case.
Oh, wow. That's why Matt Johnson's on top of the story, folks, from the beginning to the end. The civil case, and civil cases, everybody has to testify, everybody gets deposed.
Yeah, everybody gets deposed, and there's a whole different burden of proof.
Yeah. Fascinating. Okay, stay where you are, folks. We are live in Dedham, Massachusetts, just down the block from the retrial of the century. Up next, what does our live audience think about all this tonight?
And if she was not convicted, what's that feeling going to be?
Total vindication, because she didn't do it. I mean, if the standard is reasonable doubt, she can't be convicted. If they convict her, and then I don't feel like I still live in the same country. If you are a good cop, you should be ashamed of this.
As Sean Diddy Combs faces a federal jury, Court TV's Kelly Craft is live from New York.
It was an emotional day in court.
With every development, the Diddy sex trafficking trial. Live updates on Court TV. This week,
Karen Reed and Sean Diddy Combs, we have you covered with what to expect each day in these high-stakes trials.
opening statements with Julie Grant. Weekday mornings at 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
do support the police, and they say that I don't because why? I expect them to wear a badge of honor and be honest. They're not doing it.
I feel like this whole thing is corrupt, and if they have a lot of evidence to prove that this woman was guilty, it would have been found guilty by now.
Welcome back. It's that time of the show. We've got our live studio audience. We have some questions and comments tonight. Up first, name.
My name is Ashley.
All right, Ashley, question, comment, let them have it.
Question and comment, maybe. Might not have an answer. Now that we've heard from Yuri Buchanan and we've heard a lot about the police investigation and how it wasn't perfect, I've heard a lot about renewing the motion to have Mike Easter, the FBI agent, come in to testify about police investigations. Do you guys think that would make any difference?
As an expert, right?
I think anytime that you have a witness that can come in and, first off, one of the things they'll teach you in trial practice is to say it 3 times so that they get it. So if you can have somebody come in, just the redundancy of it, but also to kind of encapsulate it. I was asking Matt earlier what the jury looked like after 3 days of one witness, because that's kind of mind-numbing. You're just sitting there listening. So if you can have somebody come in, boil it down, say the same thing again, but really hit the high points, I don't think it could hurt.
And to answer that question, since the audience at home, I'm sure they're wondering, what does the jury look like and how are they behaving? They're very stoic. They're very serious and taking it very serious. And that's what we saw during the first trial too, Vinnie.
I was a little surprised that she barred the police policy and procedure witness in the first instance. Ultimately, experts are supposed to be permitted to testify if they will assist the jury in their determination. And part of the issue here has been whether this was an adequate investigation. And that witness goes directly to that question.
Matt, do they look more decisive than first time around?
Oh, we're not going to know until the end.
Okay. I was trying. Thank you so much. Any follow-up? You're good?
I think I'm good.
You're good. Up next, name.
Hi, my name's Maureen. I live in Dedham.
And so you're local. Okay, excellent. So what are your question or comment here?
First, I want to thank Grace Wong for inviting me, because the dream of my life was to be with you on the show tonight. So I'm so happy.
Viewer of the night. Okay.
So for question number 2, I wanted to give a shout out to the Dedham police, because they were actually part of that lawsuit about the buffer zone, and Chief D'Entremont is fabulous. The town is, of course, I live here, but I'm a native Bostonian, but I've lived here almost my whole life, and I just really want to say that it was unfair that they had to change the colors. I think they should have been able to wear what they wanted to wear, but I'm glad that the boundaries were set up just for safety, that's all. There's no preventing First Amendment rights, but the color, I think, wasn't too good. The second one, your third question, that one is really on Alan Jackson. If Alan Jackson doesn't pull the jury this time, and if there is a mistrial, then, that's really a foul paw on him, because that's what happened before. They were so busy celebrating, they forgot. Judge Cannoni said, okay, you can go home now. Well, wait. I think, can we pull the jury? Wouldn't that be helpful? Maybe we'd only have count 2 right now instead of counts 1 and 3, 1, 2, and 3. So in Massachusetts, it's not up to the judge to say, what do you think? What did you vote? Is that your vote? It's up to the defense attorney to take that poll. Some states, they actually poll first before they give the verdict. So I guess that's all I have.
We've seen it. Thanks so much, Maureen. Let me ask you, Rick, you practice in Norfolk County. Have you ever had a mistrial, a hung jury, and there was a polling of the jury done?
I have not had a mistrial in Norfolk County.
He won them all. See? He did. He actually did win them all.
I took the easy ones. But if it were a mistrial, you're absolutely going to ask for a polling, if nothing else, to try and get a sense of where I'm going with my retrial.
Okay. Who's up next?
Nicole from Hudson again. So, comment question. I'm going to quote
one of my favorite attorneys, Mark Betterow. He said that the Commonwealth is just reshuffling the chairs on the deck of the Titanic. And I think that either way, I think their ship is going to go down in trial 2. I think one of those chairs is Trooper Paul. So what I want to know from you guys, do you think that the defense is going to call Trooper Paul? I think that's going to be a big problem for the Commonwealth. They changed their time of impact from 12:45 to 12:31 now in trial 2. So how is that going to go over with the jury? I don't think it's going to go over well, and I'd love to hear him explain that pirouette.
Right. And Trooper Paul was the expert from the first trial. And now there's going to be a different expert. How is that going to fly, guys?
If you want to call him an expert, I mean, he took a few classes that I think anybody in this audience could take as well. I would like to see him on the stand to try to explain this again, but this time I believe that Bob Alessi would handle that situation. The guy is just an absolute genius. That's why we see him cross-examining all these experts, because he's so meticulous on every little detail. The guy barely sleeps. He eats, sleeps, and breathes this case. So Trooper Paul is going to be interesting, but I have a feeling definitely the Commonwealth's not going to call him, hence why they're bringing in somebody new. But the one issue I have with the theory change is originally it was 12:45, now it's 12:31. You know, this and that. How does it change? If the fact is Karen Reed struck John O'Keefe with her vehicle, it wouldn't matter what experts get brought in for the defense. You wouldn't be trying to exclude all their experts. You wouldn't care what they threw at you, because your evidence is so concrete that nothing's going to change it. But in this case, it's the total opposite. The defense and prosecution has switched places.
Yeah, switcherooski. We have time for one more quick question. What's your name?
Jonathan. And my question is, so if in the unfortunate situation we go to another retrial, if we have a mistrial here this time, do you believe that they will continue to retry and retry again until they get the verdict that they're looking for? And does Judge Beverly Coney remain the judge in this case?
All right, we have about 15 seconds. 15
it was
seconds
something
each.
like 20 minutes before they announced that they were reissuing the charges last time.
And I think that came out of the heat of the whole first trial. I think they still would have retried it, but that was somewhat unusual just to come out like that. I think they also were emboldened because they didn't think they'd do as well as they did, prosecution-wise. It gets to a point when in a prosecutor where you have to make a judgment that we have put our best case forward, the trial went well, it's not there to be had, and we need to walk away.
All right, big thank you. Wayne Dennison, Matt Johnson, Rick Grundy, Nick Rocco, and our live studio audience here in Dedham. Thank you all so much. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for the answers as the investigation continues. Thank you, Rick.